So let me show you one more time. Hi, I'm Jessica Rose of Quilted Studios, and I have gotten so many questions about how to do big stitch binding. It's like the newest craze in quilting, right? I guess it's been around for a little bit, but instead of doing a whip stitch, which is kind of invisible, you actually do a visible stitch with big stitch and big thread. So I will show you how I do mine and also show you how I do a couple of decorative stitches as well. I've already pulled everything out that I need here. I've got my thread. This is the kind of thread that it is right here. DMC is really similar. This is just one that I picked up at a little quilt convention, which I thought was fun. I have tried multiple needle threaders, and honestly, this one is my favorite, the metal one. It's really, really nice. It's very hefty, as they would say. So basically what we're gonna do is we are going to thread our needle, and I always thread it at the very end just because when you're pulling this thick thread through, it kind of damages it a little bit. It's just like the way that it is. It's just a fact of life. So when you are pulling, you have to pull really hard, and it can kind of fray that little part right there. So what I do is I pull it at the end, and then I snip off the part that was kind of compromised by that process. And then what we're going to do is put a knot in at the end. And what I do is just a quilter's knot. So you have your short thread, you have your long thread, you pull the bottom of your long thread. So you've got the long thread tip, and you just pinch it between your fingers like that, and then go around it 2 or 3 times. I do 3 just for good measure. And then this is the most magical thing of all time. You just pull. So you don't wrap it too tight, otherwise it'll be really hard to pull. And then you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling. And then at the very bottom, a knot will appear. That's called a quilter's knot. This is my thimble. I have the Clover leather thimble, which I love. This is my favorite one. It's soft, it's nice. I can flip it around, so you can use this side or you can use the metal side. I use the metal side a lot when I'm doing like harder stitches, so this is really helpful. Okay, so we have everything. We've got our needle. This is DMC embroidery in size 1 through 5, and I just pull from the middle. And so what we're going to do is, usually I have my wonder clips that kind of keep this down like that as I'm stitching. And this is Sherpa backing, so it's a little bit hard to see, but it is really soft and I love it. So basically I usually just go through, I don't do the whole quilt, I just do a little bit at a time, and then I can actually shift these down as I'm sewing, which is really nice. So you're gonna take your needle, and I'll come around here. And I've already stitched part of this, so you can see I will just continue on this stitch. And you'll notice a couple of things. The stitch is at the bottom. It is not in the middle, it's not at the top, it's not diagonal, it's not any weird way. For just a standard big stitch, it is at the very bottom, and that really secures it, rather than if you put it in the middle, it could kind of, the ends would flare up a little bit, which is fine, but for aesthetic purposes, that's what I do. So you're gonna take your needle and you are going to figure out a way to hide this knot somehow in the tail. So really what happens is you kind of peel it open like that, and you stick your needle in kind of in one of these little openings. That way you can kind of anchor it over there, and then you're gonna come up about the same distance away from where your other stitches start and end, and then pull through, and you can see why having a thimble is really, really helpful. Okay, we have a thread, and basically what happens is with this thread, I'm gonna trim it so it's not as long. You keep the tail on, but we just have to shove that tail up somewhere. It sounds a little weird, but just make sure that you get the tail up, and some people use the back of their needle to do this, some people use scissors, whatever it is, just get your tail up there. I will do that at the end, but for now, that looks pretty good. So we're gonna pull that tight. We have our stitch basically started. So now what we're going to do is take our needle, and you are going to go down and then go up like that. If it comes through on the other side, it will show. So what you're gonna do is go down all the way until basically you've hit the very end, but it's not showing. And it's kind of hard to get used to, but that's what it will look like. There's no stitch. I'm showing on the front, and you'll pull it tight like that. And you will just keep going all the way around in that same way. It's a lot easier than you think it is. I will say the hardest part is really just making sure it doesn't show through on the other side, because let me tell you, I do that all the time. And you know, if you get a mistake in there, no one will ever know. I won't tell anyone. So that's what it should look like. And you'll just keep going, and the better that you get, or the more comfortable that you get, then you will start doing multiple stitches at a time, which is kind of just like hand quilting as well. And that way you can do two. A little bit harder to pull through, but that's okay. I think one of my favorite parts about doing big stitch binding is that it kind of leaves this wavy effect on your binding. And I know maybe some people don't like that. But I actually love it. If you'll notice, it kind of like leaves this kind of texture around your binding. And normally binding would be very flat, but for some reason I just love that effect. So if that's something that you like, then big stitch binding is for you. So you're just gonna keep going like that. And then when you hit one of your wonder clips, I actually just shift it down, which is really nice. For the corners, I get asked about the corners all the time. You can do a couple different things. Whatever it is, you just have to secure the corner in some way. So I will keep going with that, but let me show you how I do the corners. So for my corners, what I do is an X. This is just for fun, it's decorative, it's, you know, what I have done before is I've also done just 2 lines, and you can also do other things. Whatever it is, that it just has to secure that corner. So what you do is you go down and you come up right at the edge of this binding, and then you go down and come up over here. And then you can do this either way, in any way you want, but I go down here and come up over here, and then I go down on this side and come up right here, and then I just keep going on with my stitches. So you can see that. That's how I do my corners. That's what it will look like on the other side. Okay, so now I thought I would show you some variations on big stitch binding. So I'm one who likes to be different. It's probably been me since I was a little kid, but I love doing things that are just different than everyone else. And so I'm always looking for ways to really just like express my creativity, and big stitch binding has turned out to be one of my favorite ways to do that. So I've come up with all sorts of interesting stitches for big stitch binding, and you can too. Really, the only thing that big stitch binding has to do is secure that binding to your quilt sandwich. Really like what a whip stitch would do. So for this one I did the big V stitch, and I have some tutorials on that. I've actually run a couple of courses on it, which is so fun. And this one's really fun just because it adds like a really unique touch. And then I've also done little tiny stitches like this, and I think this wasn't in size 8, this was in size 10 pearl thread, and it just goes along there. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was really helpful. I love big stitch binding. It's one of my favorite ways to finish quilts, as you can tell from all the variations I've made. If you do give it a try, make sure to tag me on Instagram, or even send me an email of your beautiful quilt bindings. I can't wait to see them. I hope this was helpful. And if it was, make sure to subscribe to our channel so that way you get notified whenever there's new videos that come out.